The kindest person you know is probably the most exhausted person you know. And the terrifying part? They don't even realize it themselves. Think about the person in your life who always shows up, the one who never says no, the one who smiles no matter what is happening inside them. On the surface, it looks like strength. It looks like love. It looks almost saintly. But if you look closely, really, truly closely, you'll see something else living just behind their eyes. Something heavy, something tired, something almost hollow. We've been told since childhood that kindness is purely good, that it's the safest, most virtuous thing a person can ever be. But psychology tells a very different story, because kindness, deep, habitual, compulsive kindness, has a shadow side that almost nobody talks about. And that shadow, it can destroy a person from the inside out. Here's what most people never realize. Kindness that comes from fear is not kindness at all. It's a survival strategy, wearing a beautiful mask. It starts young. A child learns that putting others first earns them reward. Smiles, praise, warmth, a love they didn't feel before. And slowly, without anyone meaning harm, that child begins to believe something quietly dangerous. My worth depends entirely on how much I give. Psychologists call this conditional love conditioning. It rewires the nervous system at its very core. It teaches the brain that being agreeable means being safe. And the older that child grows, the harder it becomes to separate who they truly are from what the world expects them to be. They become the reliable one, the one who never complains, the one everyone calls so kind. Almost like a warning label. But here's the open loop I need you to hold on to. What happens to everything they never say? What happens to the anger they swallow every single day? The needs they bury? The truth they hide behind a smile? Where does all of that actually go? Nothing ever disappears. Not in human psychology. Things suppressed don't vanish. They go underground. And underground, in the dark, things quietly rot. There's a well-documented concept in behavioral science called compassion fatigue. It describes what happens when someone gives so much empathy and care that they eventually run completely devastatingly dry. Doctors experience it, teachers, therapists, caregivers, but also the quiet, kind person in your life, the one who never asks for anything. And the science is painfully clear. They are slowly, silently breaking. Studies show that people who chronically prioritize others over themselves report significantly higher rates of anxiety, depression, and even physical illness. Not because they are weak, but because no one ever taught them that kindness needs a boundary. And here's the twist that will completely change how you see this. Your kindness can actually train people to ignore you. Read that again. When you are always the one who adjusts, always the one who makes space, always the one who says it's fine, don't worry about me, people eventually stop worrying about you. Not out of cruelty, out of conditioning. You trained them. Your behavior silently sent one quiet, devastating message. My needs are not important. My feelings are negotiable. And the world listened. And the world acted accordingly. This is the dark paradox buried inside chronic kindness. The more endlessly you give, the more invisible you become. And invisibility is not peace. It is loneliness disguised in politeness. But the story goes even deeper than that. Because when you suppress your needs long enough, something dark begins shifting beneath the surface. Resentment builds quietly, steadily, dangerously. A voice inside starts whispering, "What about me?" But the conditioned, kind person silences that voice immediately. Because the unspoken rule says, you are not allowed to put yourself first. So the resentment stays, hidden, fermenting, growing. Neuroscience explains this through the mirror neuron system, the part of your brain directly responsible for human empathy. When you witness someone in pain, your brain fires as if you are in pain too. It's what makes compassion feel so natural, so instinctive, so human. But here's what that same neuroscience also reveals. Mirror. Neurons cannot distinguish between healthy empathy and destructive empathy. Expose your brain to endless suffering with no boundary whatsoever, and it floods itself with chronic stress signals. Over time, this rewires your nervous system toward permanent anxiety, toward emotional exhaustion, toward quiet collapse. Behavioral science has a name for this: pathological altruism. It's when the very desire to help causes harm. To the healer, and sometimes silently, to the receiver too. Because when you constantly rescue someone from their own discomfort, you steal their ability to grow. You believe you're being kind, but you may be building their cage with your own hands. And this is where the real monster lives. Not in your anger, not in your darkness, but in the repressed, suffocated self, buried silently beneath years of endless, performative smiling. Every time you said yes, when every part of you meant no, you abandoned yourself a little more. Every time you smiled through pain to keep the peace, you drifted further from the person you actually are. Real emotional intelligence begins with this one uncomfortable truth. Kindness without honesty is not kindness. It is self-erasure, dressed in the costume of virtue. So, how do you break free from this cycle? How do you stay compassionate without becoming a martyr? The answer is deeply uncomfortable. It starts not with others, but with you. Not in a selfish way, in the most truthful way possible. Think of the oxygen mask rule on an airplane. You secure yours first, not because your life matters more than the person beside you, but because if you lose consciousness, you save absolutely no one. The same precise truth applies to human connection. If your kindness has drained you completely, it was never truly kindness. It was performance, and performance always, eventually, collapses. Research in personality and social psychology confirms this directly. Authentic kindness, freely chosen, not obligation-driven, increases well-being, deepens relationships, and genuinely reduces stress. But kindness, driven by fear, guilt, or the desperate need for approval, it lowers happiness. It increases anxiety. It slowly erodes who you are. So here's the psychological shift that changes everything. Boundaries are not walls. They are the most honest gift you can give another human being. A boundary says, I care about you, and I also care about myself. It says, my love is real, but it cannot survive if I am empty. Studies show that people who set healthy boundaries are actually perceived as more trustworthy, more genuine, more real. Why? Because when they say yes, without doubt they mean it. Their kindness isn't forced from fear. It flows from something chosen, something free, and authenticity, true, raw, unmasked authenticity, is magnetic. Start practicing what psychologists call the intentional pause. Before automatically saying yes, stop, breathe, check in with yourself. Ask honestly, do I want this? Do I have the energy for this right now? Learn the compassionate no. I care about you, but I can't right now. Reframe your worth, not by what you give, but simply by who you are. You existed before anyone needed anything from you. You are worthy, even when your hands are completely empty. And finally, let yourself feel the difficult emotions. The anger, the frustration, the grief, the quiet, buried rage. These are not the enemies of kindness. They are signals, compass, points, honest, urgent messengers. Suppress them, and they become the monster that consumes you. Listen to them, and they become the guide that finally brings you home. Because the world doesn't need more people who erase themselves to be loved. It needs people brave enough to be kind without losing themselves in the process.